Hi, my name is Nathan Hatfield, and I'd like to welcome you to Cane River Creole National Historical Park. This national park was established in 1994 to preserve and interpret the history of two cotton plantations, Oakland and Magnolia. Right now, we're going to go on a tour of Oakland. We're going to give you a description of all the buildings, and then later on we're going to head over to Magnolia and tell you about the plantation over there. So again, thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this video tour. Right now I'm standing in front of the main house here at Oakland Plantation, and all around me are huge live oak trees. We think these trees were planted around the same time the house was built in 1820. So these trees around me are going on 200 years old, and they were planted this way for a reason. This is an oak allée. You see these a lot on plantations in Louisiana. And the purpose for the way these were planted was because the family thought that this alley of oak trees would have acted almost like a wind tunnel or a funnel to bring in cool breezes off of Cane River. Now I don't know how effective that was, but these trees, they certainly provide a lot of shade to help keep the family cool. Now behind me in the garden right in front of the main house, that's the bottle garden. The family started putting bottles out there in the 1830s. And then as generations went by, the descendants, they maintained it and added to it. So we've got 1830s French wine bottles, but you also got 1950s Anheuser-Busch bottles. And you've got medicine bottles and soda bottles and liquor bottles. Just about any type of bottle you can imagine is out there somewhere. And total, there's about 2,700 bottles in the bottle garden today. So now we're in the parlor of the Oakland main house. And all around me here are paintings and photographs of the Pruden family. This family lived in this house and ran this plantation for 200 years. And that's pretty remarkable, because during that time, they had to get through the Civil War. And then after the Civil War, there were outbreaks of the boll weevil they had to contend with. In the 1930s, of course, you had the Great Depression. So there were events that caused people just like them to lose their houses and lose their farms. But whenever these people had a tough situation, they found a way to get through it. They were very resourceful. They were very good at adapting to difficult times. The fact that they were able to make this place work for so long is certainly a credit to the Pruden family. But they couldn't have done it without all the other people who lived and worked here. Of course, originally they had enslaved laborers. Then they had sharecroppers and tenant farmers. There was also a doctor here, carpenters and blacksmiths, and somebody running the store. So it was a community of people who worked together, almost like a team, to make this place work. And this community was a unique community culturally. Most of the people that lived and worked here were Creole. And to be Creole means that you are descended from Louisiana's colonial settlers. So there's a gentleman back here on the wall, Jean-Pierre Emmanuel Prudhomme. He was born here in colonial Louisiana, so he was Creole, and his descendants up to the present day have their Creole roots with him. Now he was of French descent, but there were a lot of other different people here too. You see, the French, they brought African slaves. You also had Spanish people and a few Native Americans. And with all those people living and working together, something unique came out of that. And to be Creole today means that you probably have some French ancestors, but you might have some African ancestors and maybe some Spanish ancestors. And so if you saw a Creole person walking down the sidewalk, you couldn't tell they were Creole by the color of their skin. They could have a very light complexion or a very dark complexion. It just depends on how much intermixing was going on in their family tree. There are certain things that all Creoles share. Typically they're all Catholic. And they also share language and food and music, all the things that define a culture. And of course, our National Park Service is here to tell the story of our country. And until this became a national park, there wasn't a site within the national park system that talked about the Creoles. So a big reason why you're at a national park today is because of that link to the Creole culture. Behind me, you can see the mule barn. Before they had tractors, every cotton plantation had mules. Mules pulled the plows in the fields, and they were the beast of burden. And so you couldn't have an effective cotton plantation without a good team of mules. And the mules had to be well fed and well taken care of, or else this plantation wouldn't function in an effective way. This building right here is the pigeonnet. Basically, that's a pigeon house. The family here at Oakland raised pigeons for a variety of reasons. They used to eat the birds. Specifically, they liked to eat the real young baby pigeons, and they used to serve it on toast, and it was called squab on toast. That's a delicacy in the French culture. Now, they also used to eat the pigeon eggs and use the waste for fertilizer. And so it was a functional building that supplied food and fertilizer for the family and the plantation. This building behind me is the doctor's house. Around the time of the Civil War, this was the home of the plantation doctor. Oakland had around 150 slaves, and it made sense when you had that many people living here that there was somebody here that could provide medical care. And it was in the best interest of a slave owner to make sure that the workers here were in good health. Now, during the 20th century, various other family members lived here. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all related to the Prudhomme family. Today, the doctor's house is an office building for park staff. So it's one of the few buildings at Oakland Plantation that's not open to the public. Now we're at the overseer's house. The overseer was the person who managed the plantation. He worked very closely with the enslaved laborers in the field. He made sure that the cotton was planted, that the cotton was picked. He also made sure that buildings were repaired and fences mended. The first overseer to live in this building was a man named Seneca Pace, and he kept a journal of daily activities here at Oakland Plantation. And every day he wrote about the activities that he managed, the work that was done, and one thing that he mentions in just about every journal entry is the weather. Because the weather could make or break life on a plantation. Too much rain was bad, not enough rain was bad, too much heat was bad. So the weather was something that was a daily concern for the overseer and the owners of this plantation. Now, people still lived in this building well into the 20th century. The last people to live here were the Matwire family. Leo Matwire, the head of this family, he wasn't an overseer like Seneca Pace was. He was more like a groundskeeper or a yard man. He took care of the gardens and raised animals. His wife and his mother served as cooks, and they did laundry for the Prudhomme family as well. And descendants of the Matwire family are still alive. And Mary Sue Matwire, she was born in this building. She comes back every year to help us out during the big fall tour of homes here at Oakland Plantation.